Hello guys and welcome to episode 7 of Esports Universe Community Talks. This week we're going to be talking about esports presenters, of course, presented as usual by myself, Infinity and Boffers, your regular host. And this week we're joined by Rach Darling and of course Chris Stealth, presenters yourselves. And we're just going to start this week by introducing you guys. So you guys can introduce yourselves. What do you do? Because of course both of you presenters and casters. So what do you guys do, in esports? Where's your areas of expertise?
Well, some of you probably may know who I am. I'm Chris Stealth. I've done various other different things over the course of 4 years, mainly from my time in the CWL casting, the European scene, and the National League I did just a few months ago. And recently stepped into presenting for the Arena Clash alongside Belong and Game, and hosting the player stage at I-62.
Nice. I don't have much to follow up from that. But I'm not actually, I'm not officially, professionally a host presenter thing. Chris kind of took me under his wing for Arena Clash, and he did a really good job teaching me the ropes. He told me exactly what I needed to know. But I'm actually a Twitch streamer. I started off on YouTube a couple of years back, and I've got 9,500 subs on there, which no one really knows about because I never mention it because I'm never on it. And then I went on Twitch streaming, and now I do Overwatch. I've got into Arc recently, which is a slippery slope. But yeah, and then we took on esports presenting in January. I think it was February. February, yeah. Actually, funny enough, it was my first kind of experience with esports. I didn't know much about esports until February, and it's a massive, massive industry. It's huge.
A good thing to be involved in. That's what me, myself, and Brody do. Yeah. Anyway, well, I think we'll start things off then. I think one of the first topics that we wanted to roll into is something that I only just started getting into casting this year, and I made a video that I posted on Twitter recently, just thanking everyone for the support that I'd had, because it's been obviously immense. Me and Brody have made a bit of a climb within the ranks, the community which we're in. And I'm very grateful for all that. But for me, when I first started doing that first broadcast with Brody, who'd been doing it for longer than I had, I was extremely nervous. As much as I wasn't even running the stream at this point. Now I run all the streams all the time for everything here. And but at that time I was extremely nervous. And obviously, like you saying, Jess, that you just started doing it in January, coming into the new esports arena. There's got to be some nerves, especially with that. And obviously with Chris on a much bigger scale with the CWL and what have. I just wanted to talk about nerves and how you manage them, because for me it's become a natural thing. I just get home now, just throw on the stream and just go straight into it. It doesn't even matter. It's eventually settled down. So I just wanted to know how you guys managed that one.
I think Jess, you're more nervous than I when it comes to these sorts of things now. So I think I'll let you cover this one.
Yeah, live stuff was definitely a big jump from being at home and just streaming, and then going from a live stage, which is you're presenting from anywhere between sort of 50, and I think we peaked maybe 200 people right in front of us, which is pretty daunting. But not only that, that there's a sort of a silent audience on Twitch. During the Football Manager stream, we got to 850 viewers on Twitch, which for me is pretty daunting because I usually sort of sit around 30 to 50 viewers quite comfortably and I can control the chat. But when you're standing there and you're kind of exposed to so much judgment and so many opinions, you want to really try and nail it. And I remember the Arena Clash Overwatch finals on the Saturday. I was really excited for, so much so I actually started shaking on stage. And I've been doing drama for about 6 years, so inside I was right. Yeah. Oh, you go through the steps of breathe normally, calm down,
get your superordinate goal in mind and everything, start rolling.
Exactly. And none of it was working, and it was getting more and more intense that I was physically shaking, my hands were tremoring, my feet were going, and I was just oh my god. So I flipped one of the things I said and I made it apparent. I was I don't know about you guys, but I'm shaking with adrenaline right now. And instead of saying my line, I threw it straight to the casters and got us off stage. It was it was free. It was improvising quite a lot, and I think that was the most intense amount of stage fright I had.
And
I mean, in fairness, we had quite a big crowd as well. So Friday we had not a big crowd. I think we must have peaked at 100, maybe 150. So it was, a nice warm-up day. And then Saturday morning, straight into it. I mean, you didn't really sleep much that night, did you? Or was it the previous night you didn't sleep
The
much?
Thursday night, I didn't sleep at all.
Yeah.
And then Friday, I think I got 6 hours. So in the space of 48 hours, I had 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah, so then to go in on a Saturday morning and open up in front of like 250 plus people who are ready to watch Overwatch. Yeah, it was really a little bit interesting, especially, I wasn't quite, because beforehand, before we got on stage, when we was at High 62, we'd go to the side 10, 15 minutes beforehand. We'd go through what we were going to say in what order and, how we were going to say it. So we had like a set plan in our heads, and obviously we would improvise where we needed to. But when it came down to that one, I think everything just went out the window. Yeah. Literally everything was like, this is Overwatch. Here's the casters. Bye. And then it was just over and done with. Yeah. But yeah, it's nerves is one of those things you kind of struggle to deal with. It's taken me 4 years to get to a point where I can now kind of comfortably talk in front of a crowd. The CWL certainly helped last year. I mean, Birmingham wasn't a big stage. Neither was Sheffield. But I mean, it's grown and grown, and it's definitely helped. Especially for my first LAN event, which was Amter Pro 1 in Leicester, where there were probably maximum of 10 people watching in the crowd, which was like so ridiculous at that point. To then grow to the stages at which is now. It certainly helps starting from where I was to where I am now.
Yeah, and that's something that we don't see as well, me and George. I mean, we peak at 350 viewers on the stream.
Peak. I was
and that's online as well.
I was bricking it in those finals, mate.
We can be nervous, but it's not nervous level where, for example, for us, it's just our voices, right? If we treble up in our voices, it's an issue, but it's not as much an issue whereas they don't see our faces. So for you guys, as you have that as well, like you can see if you're nervous, you can see if you're bricking it. Whereas for us, it's just yeah, it's fine. And I think that's really awesome that you guys have learned to deal with that for the most part. I mean, and it's taken 4 years to do that. That's we've got a long way to go. I
think the best thing is don't look at the numbers. Obviously, you do require the numbers to be quite high to continue to stream and everything. Obviously, it helps to motivate you. But I think that the main thing is don't look at it. Talk to them as if you were just talking to yourself in the mirror. Once you get through that, then you can talk, and it doesn't really matter. If people have hateful things to say in the chat, then you just disregard them. I now laugh at every single bad thing said on me on Twitch chat, which is a lot, by the way. I get a lot of hate, especially for my accent. But you just laugh. You just have to laugh because at the end of the day, you're the one on camera and you're the one on stage, and they're sat in their bedroom in their pants watching you.
That's one way to
that's a true comment. Harsh, but true. I was watching the the Arena Clash Saturday VOD on Twitch, and someone was like, "Oh my god, Girl Gamer!" And then I spoke, and they were like, "Oh wait, never mind." I was like, "Ouch!" But I looked badass, so I didn't really mind.
Yeah, that's all right. Whatever floats your boat. It's like I do that all the time. Whenever we do a cast, I always go back and look at it because I'm like so hyper paranoid about wanting to improve myself. Or like, I stumbled on my words there. That's gonna really like play on me for a while. And I'm just like, yeah, but it doesn't matter, does it? It's all in live and it's all in the heat of the moment. So, like, I used to be super uptight on that, watching all the VODs back and everything, but now I just let it go. Like, I've got to a point. I've got to a point where Brody hates the sound of his own voice. I love it way too much.
I literally cannot watch a VOD back of my own voice casting. It's horrific. And I don't think anyone can anyway. Anyone watching it live can use it. But like I just find that I think that's like something everyone experiences though. You don't really want to hear the sound of your own voice on
you look back at what you did, like in the moment with some of the cast plays that I made. Like I obviously like think of something in the shower, like a nice call to make, and then I actually crack it out at one point. And I'm like, that was badass as hell, man. Yeah, that was so good. And then I look back at it and think that was cringy as shit. What did I say before?
I think one of the things that we learned, so before we started to do the Arena Clash this season, is we had some presenter training. So me and Jess went down to Basingstoke to Games HQ to go through a bit of training for a weekend. And one of the things we learned was if you're ever going to watch your stuff back so that you can learn to improve yourself, is always to pick up on the good things and just just get rid of the bad things. So focus on the things that you're good at, and then work on improving them to the best of your ability. I think that's the best piece of advice I'd ever been given, because now whenever I watch myself back, I know that I have a terrible voice and I tend to stutter and my accent is horrible, but there are certain things that I'm really quite good at. And I've been looking at focusing those over the last 6 to 8 weeks, and I think it's really started to show. So I think, again, for both of you guys in the casting, do exactly the same. Focus on what you're good at. Just bin off everything else that's bad, because the rest will come in time.
Yeah, that's perfect, actually. Yeah.
Another piece of advice which our producer gave us while we were live on the stages and stuff was that it comes like when you're live and you're presenting, you're hosting or doing anything in front of a stage, and you're worried about things being said wrong. Like, because I stutter quite a lot, I say quite a lot, and I pronounce words wrong all the time because I muddle up my accent. But one thing he said was, if you say it wrong, just move on, because it's a split second that the audience will witness it. If you dabble in it and if you trip over your own words, the audience will notice it more. Whereas if you can get over it really quickly and carry on as if nothing happened, chances are the audience won't notice either. And that, I was like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you just kind of gloss over the mistakes. Like, one of the first things I started doing a couple of years ago when I did like an initial cast, that like some people I got good feedback on it on the whole, but like a lot of it was a bit hit or miss. But some things that I'd say where I'd like say the wrong team name or something, and I'd double back on it, and it'd be like, oh, wait, and it just sounds so wrong. You just got to roll with it in the flow of the moment, like just put it out of your mind for a second, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Brody? Or are we moving on?
I was going to say, I think that's perfect, because that was the topic I was going to move on from to the next, was how you guys deal with criticism when it comes to it. Because, myself and George, I don't think George as much, but definitely criticism comes my way when it comes to casting. And I think it's good to hear that, it's not just amateur casters that get it as well. It's the professionals, the ones at the top of their game, still get criticism. And I just want to know, like, from your perspective as well, like, do you think that like professional casters get too much criticism from players? Now, I don't know. I think Stealth will know, like, because obviously you cast the CWL, right? So you'll know 100%. Like, you'll see this and you'll get it as well.
Instantly.
Yeah. So I just want to know, like, your view on that, because obviously some of those casters at the top as well that are still there now.
Yeah.
So like, and you'll probably understand that they probably just get criticism too. So I just want to know, like, how you deal with that and how they dealt with that as well.
Well, again, it comes down to the same thing. Now, when I was at CWL Birmingham last season, so I-60.
Which is a real small event.
Yeah, quite small event.
In the corner of the event, yeah.
Hey, it did its job. It was perfect for what we needed it for.
Right.
But it come down to the grand finals. Obviously, Splice versus Epsilon, and an incredible grand final it was. But Rated was tweeting, saying that the casters were being very biased towards how Epsilon had beaten Red and how Red would have coped against Splice. And he was saying that, he was basically slandering the casters. I can't exactly remember the exact words he said, but it does seem to be like the top end of the player spectrum. They get more critical of casters and what they say. And I don't know where they get this from, because if you look across the other esports like CS, Overwatch, League of Legends, none of the other, like the pro players, give as much crap to casters as COD does. COD gets this self-entitlement where it thinks it's the be-all and end-all of all esports for no reason, and the players seem to just get it into their heads that they can say anything that they want, and that the casters were going to listen. We're going to bend over backwards just to accommodate them, and it's not the case. So what we tend to do now is, when we just see this sort of thing, is laugh. We are hired to do a job at the end of the day, and we're going to say what we see. Now, if your team's performing badly, we're going to say it. If one of your players has done a great play and the rest of the team hasn't really done much, we're going to say it. That's how you just suck it up. You're a player at the end of the day. You're under the spotlight constantly. And that's our job, is to highlight you and your team and how you play. If you can't handle that, you're probably in the wrong place, and you probably want to just crawl back into your bed, under your covers, and hide away from the rest of the world for the entirety of your life.
Oof. Okay.
That's strong. That's a GAD. That's a clip.
But that's the thing, though. It gets to a point now where you kind of you get fed up, because it's the same thing over and over and over again. Yes, you may not like what's being said, but at the same point, you're a player. These things happen. You may have a bad time. we're going to point out, but when you have a good time as well, again, we're going to say those things. So it's a part of our job and a part of your job.
I got a very similar criticism actually the other day. I won't mention names, but there's a few instances where myself and Brody on stream have called out like specific players for underperforming or saying like, oh, maybe a roster change is in order if this sort of performance continues up, right? Then what we'll get like one of the players from the team who was the victim of the criticism in a sense coming and saying like, oh, I don't think it's really fair that you made those comments. We're all really good mates in real life, and you don't know exactly what I do in the team. It's like, how am I supposed to know? I'm not in your team. I don't see that you do this particular base setup or whatever. So, like, it's the same. And like you were saying, Chris, I'm massive into all the esports. Like, especially my primary would be, like, Overwatch, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, all of those, like, I'm massively into. And I don't ever really see, like, could you imagine if Faker was going out and criticizing Deficio or something like that? Or if you saw, I don't know, like, Olaf Meister, like, or Get Right criticizing Anders for saying something, it's just absurd. You don't see that kind of thing coming out. And often, like, I do see, like, fans criticizing certain stage hosts because there's such a variety of them in those sort of esports, which is something that you guys can potentially attest to here, is that there's, like, one of the ones, well, there's a couple of stage hosts who I really love, potentially, like, Smix is a great example of a really good female stage host, OJ Borg, who also has, like, BBC training and everything like that, he's also absolute quality, but even so, these guys aren't everyone's cup of tea, and I think stage hosting is something that's, it's like an art form to get right. I just wondered if you guys can elaborate on that.
I mean,
because you have to develop your own style, right?
So it's all down to people's preferences. You're never going to please everyone, I think, is the main focus here. You can just do the best that you can do. At the end of the day, you were hired for a specific reason. You've done something that someone's been impressed with, and they think that you projecting yourself to hundreds and thousands of other people is good enough to do. Now, there's going to be a small pocket, a small minority who think, no, this person's not good enough because they're not to my taste. I prefer such and such. Well, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. But at the end of the day, I may not like the same host that you may not like. See, for me, I'm not a big fan of OJ Borg. I think he's a good host, but I don't like him on that sort of level.
Yeah, understandable.
And it's all down to personal preference at the end of the day. You're never going to please everyone.
No.
I think that is quite true. Like uniqueness about people is what makes people stand out. But in terms, it's funny you mentioned that guy. I'm not really familiar with all the presenters and things that have already sort of made foundations in esports. But I know our producer's got BBC training, and he took elements of his BBC training and taught us. He took us through such a massive, long-winded 2-day producer training. It was presenter training. It was insane, but there was a lot of guidelines which I didn't know about. Just gesturing, like emotion, facial expressions, clothing, everything that people kind of like take for granted and skim over. And when he explained it to us, and we went through the 2-day journey. We went from something that was kind of like, in my case, amateur, to something that was kind of, you could kind of tell there was a certain like quality level now. So I believe that, there is certain elements and certain, I guess, like cookie cutters that you got to fit into, but the uniqueness, like your own sort of way of projecting things. Like my presenter style is completely different to Chris's. You can tell, like, Chris is very factual and he's very, I don't know, like dramatic. You tell a story in what you do. And when you get to a certain like way of describing something, you're really, really what's the word, like,
I'm quite intense.
Yeah, and you get really drawn in what you say when you get to like specific points. Whereas me, I don't know what I'm like, but I feel like I'm more of a character, like a smiley thing to look at more than anything, and that's not a bad thing. But I'm just still trying to find my little cookie cutter.
everyone develops their own style, which I think is unique. For example, like I can think one of my personal idols who's in a bit of a bad spot at the moment is Sadakist, and I think he's an exceptional caster because he's got like a unique style which is quite funny. It's like it's incredibly smart on wordplay, and I really like that kind of stuff, being an English student. Like there's a lot of other things like that I like though as well. Like some people will agree that maybe like people didn't like Mr. X. I wasn't a great fan of Mr. X in terms of like overall like hype casting, but he actually, like, if you paired him with someone like Maven, it was like the dream team duo. It was color and what do you call it? Color and play-by-play. And I think that was like perfect. But anyway, that's just my take on that situation. Brody, you can move us on if you wish.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers that altogether. How to do criticism and that. But anyway, we'll move on to your guys' actual experiences at Insomnia, because this is something we did want to talk about, because you guys, again, you host Clash Arena, right? So you guys can talk about your experience with that at Insomnia, and George, you can say into this one, because again, you guys will know.
I was there.
Way
I was
more
watching
about
you
it.
guys. I was one of those 250 faces in the crowd.
Then I will, because you guys can talk about your experience there, because as far as I'm aware, it was your first time hosting that event at I62, or at Insomnia event. So I just wanted to know like how that was. I mean, because obviously I think it's sort of the same thing where it's your first time doing that event, you know, that your experience with that as a whole.
Funny enough, the Somni just gone was my 2-year anniversary of ever going to a gaming con.
Oh, really?
Which was insane. Yeah, it was my 4th Insomnia. My first 2, I went as I went to 5. So my first 2 was like a normal, everyday person. My second one, I went as a +1. My third one, I went as a Razor streamer, and my 5th one, I went as a host. So it was pretty insane for me. I loved every minute of it. I'm just curious, what part of the show did you catch?
I ended up watching a bit of the Overwatch on the Saturday. And
Right,
I think there was some Rocket League thing on at the time as well that I kept coming in and out of as I left COD. I kept coming in and out and seeing Rocket League on, and I was like, wow, that's really loud. I might watch that for a little minute. So I sat in the subway queue, turned around and saw both you guys chilling out. There was a huge queue for Subway at like lunchtime on the Sunday or something, and I was just like, I'm just gonna get Subway right here. And I turned around and was just looking at the stage, and it was really cool, like what was going on. I thought it was great.
Versus RAF.
Yeah.
Rocket League versus Rocket League, us versus RAF. Yeah, we had
I was so
someone
confused with what
carrying
going on.
us.
I saw like RAF on the screen. I was like, "What?" I hadn't been told that anything with the Royal Air Force was going on. So I turned around and was like, "What are they doing here? This is so weird."
Yeah, RAF wanted to, because they had a stand and everything at the actual expo. They wanted to get more involved with video games, and Newsbeat got involved as well. They made like a little mini documentary about exploring skills that the RAF bring in, and then video games and the connection between two of them. So the lads, they were so nice. So they jumped on the stage with us, played a bit of Rocket League. They tried so hard to beat us, and they would have beat us, Chris. They would have beat us, but we had a carrier that literally had a backpack so large. We just absolutely stormed on them, and it was really fun. It was really good.
That's like one of those experiences you got to cherish, isn't it? I suppose that's one of the perks of having such a cool job in a sense, or such a cool opportunity to do something like a stage host like that. You get those fantastic opportunities that you never like. There's so much fun to be a part of, and you just don't really like. From me looking in, I'd so love to have been a part of that. That sounds like so awesome to be a part of. Even though I suck at Rocket League, that would have been so good to be a part of.
Same.
Well, that's the funny thing is that we both only played. Well, Jess had only played it like once before, and I'd only played about 30 hours worth of Rocket League. And we just jumped into it and was like, well, these guys had played like 200+ hours. So, you know, they had a slight advantage over us. We still beat them 3-1, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the best.
Goals. Did you guys get the goals, or was it your third?
No,
I
we've got
got
a few
2.
goals ourselves.
I got 2.
I don't know
You
how many I
stole one.
got. I didn't.
You stole one. He did. He did. If
Fine,
I
for
don't know
argument's
whether-
sake, I stole a goal. Okay,
Oh.
fine, whatever.
Twitch.tv/belong by game. There's a highlight, there's a clip on there that I clipped myself of you shooting the goal from him.
Oh, go
It's
for that.
true.
Love that.
Oh no. Okay. Well,
find
it was
that now. You
it was a sort of steal. Yeah, but it was interesting, the event itself, because as I said, I'm from a casting background, so I'm used to sitting here and talking nonsense about Call of Duty or Counter-Strike or Overwatch. It's not usually something I do, is just stand up on stage and actually have all the attention directly upon me. So it was something different. Obviously, doing the Arena Clash last season, not last season, season before, back in the winter season, was a big eye-opener. Having to present and host a show on my own was quite surreal, something I'd never done before. Then coming into the spring season, obviously I had Jess to help me out, which was just amazing. I couldn't have done it on my own. And then, yeah, I mean, to then go on to get invited onto the Insomnia hosting, and again, it's the stepping stones. You know, it's taken 4 years to get there. So online COD tournaments, to LAN COD tournaments, to hosting a show, to hosting on stage. It's you know, it's kind of like the natural progression through. If that's what kind of wanted to do. So I feel quite fortunate that I've had that path to get me there, and I you know, I've taken every step possible. Whereas Jess has just cut the line and just hopped straight in at the top, where she does what she wants at the end of the day.
No, when you were describing it, were you just describing your journey from how you started from bottom to sort of made it to where you are now? I'm sat here thinking, like, I did nothing like that. I literally just got
streamed
picked
on Twitch.
from Twitch and just went, go, and I was like, ah. So honestly, if I didn't have someone like Chris, who was just educated in like this whole background, I would have just been like swimming in deep water. Like, I would have not been able to do any of this stuff. So I just got dropped in it, and I picked things up as I went along. But honestly, a lot of it was Chris when he pulled me to the side. He was like, "Okay, that was good, but don't do that again." Because there was a couple of times on stage where I kind of stood on his foot a little bit. And he was
no, not literally. We're kind of like far apart on the stage, but it was when we were doing interviews or throwing it to each other is where she would throw me under the bus, and I'd be like, "I have no idea what I'm going to say, so I'm going to just make something up."
I'm so sorry. It's because it got to the point where I think I accidentally asked his question. Just in the moment, I asked his question because it threw to me, and I was like, "Oh!" And then I finished my question. The guy answered, and it was all lovely. And I was like, "Where do we go from here?" So I threw to Chris, who had no idea I was going to throw to him, and then he was like,
because at this point I was stood at the back of the stage behind several of the players, and then she threw it to me. I went, "Well, what am I supposed to do? I'm right behind everyone else. This guy's right next to me. So what do you think of the final game of the day? It was really, really close." And he just shoved a microphone in his gob. He was more surprised than I was.
You did really well.
So yeah, I think the one thing that I've learned from this is to expect the unexpected. You really can't prepare yourself for being on stage. It's an entirely, completely different entity to anything you'll ever be used to, and it's super fun.
Yeah, the same goes for the producers as well. Like, the producers have everything lined up. They think they're going to stitch you both up in an April Fool's prank, and then the two hosts get together and work together and prank the producer. It's the best thing ever.
Yes.
I don't think they actually realized that. The audience realized that like on when we were on stage doing it, but we threw in like an inside joke towards our producer, which we are not allowed in any circumstance to explain right now. But it him. We could hear it in our like little earpiece comms. Him just cursing us every word under the sun. It was the best thing ever. It was so good.
You love to see it. You love to see it. Right, what we got next, Brody? What are we moving on to now?
We said that
today. Come on.
Which says to Drew?
You're the one guiding us through. I'm throwing you under the bus here. I'm doing the gesture.
Right, so the next point we were given was esports is a viable career path because, Chris, you said you spent 4 years working your way up the ladder to the point where now you've presented and you're doing stuff for Clash Arena and Belong, and the same for you, Jess, so you just jumped into it.
Jumping in the deep end, I suppose,
Yeah, I mean, definitely the deep end. But I think I'd like to ask you two as well, because this is actually a really important topic. Obviously, myself and George, we're just at the starting point, right? We've got a long road ahead of us before we can even call ourselves professional casters, and even like semi-pro casters, right? So I think a good question to ask would be like, how viable is esports as a full-time job now? Because Chris, you said earlier on that it's technically not right now your full-time job. And again, I'm not sure how much of a full-time job the streaming and stuff is for you, Jess. So for you guys, how viable do you think esports as a scene is?
Or just gaming?
Or gaming. Yeah, I think gaming as a whole, you could probably extrapolate it to that. Is as a job, and do you guys think that you can get there? I'd say within the future, I guess, the next few years.
Well, this is a bit of a tough one for me. So obviously, I've started from the bottom, and now I'm here, to quote a certain rapper. But it's a long road. It's never going to be easy.
Yeah.
There are very few and far between opportunities nowadays as well, with very little LAN events going on for a caster to make his mark.
Especially now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
in the UK as well. In the UK, if you're a caster, it's nothing. Literally
It's
Dire.
it's crazy difficult. I've been in the exact same situation as you guys, and I've had to change and adapt. But even then, to
Bear
get
Grylls. Improvise,
to-
adapt, overcome.
exactly, in all fairness, that actually works in esports like as a really good like motto, because at the end of the day, the whole esports scene is changing and adapting on a daily basis. To make it as a full-time career, I'm still trying to do this,
Right.
despite the amount of work I'm doing. So I do work for the National University Esports League on a Monday and a Thursday. I do the Arena Clash in the spring, summer, and winter seasons. I also go ahead and do the CWL stuff every now and again for the National League, and it's it gets to a point where you kind of have to make a decision. I've had to turn down probably 8 or 9 different opportunities in the last 2 months, due to the fact that I work full time. So it gets to a point where I'm at right now, where I either decide to dive in and go right esports full time, and just wing it,
Right.
or I have to sit back and hold on until there's that one opportunity that will see me through for a long, long time. Because esports is so volatile, you can't really give yourself a freelance career in it unless you're at the very top of your game. So you're talking like you work for ESL on like a weekly basis, or you do other work for the CWL. Those are the only viable options. Not unless you obviously include, if you do like a live stream every now and again to bump up your subs and everything, you get paid by that way. But certainly esports is a viable option, but by no means is it easy. I think that's one of the things that people fall into a trap of, is they think, oh, esports, it's online streaming, I can do that, I can cast, I can talk, I can do this and I can do that. But at the end of the day, to make it a viable career, you've got a lot of work to put in.
Yeah.
See, my situation's kind of the exact opposite of Chris's. I did a BBC documentary last year, and it came out at the start of the year, and it started circling around that I was doing Twitch full time, and that I made a 4-figure sum. I didn't know about it. My bank didn't know about it. But I
lovely.
don't. Like, I don't do any of this full time. I'm a sales advisor for a phone company, and it's not the best thing in the world, but it pays my bills, and I have 0 at the end of it. Because I live with my mum, and I pay half the bills for her, half the bills, whatever. So Twitch and all the stuff I do on the side, like Arena Clash and all that, that pays for my car fuel, for going out, like dinner, food, all the rest of it. But I've gotten myself into like a fortunate situation where in the next couple of months I can just leave my sales advisor job and move out and then focus more on this area. So Twitch streaming, it's difficult because there's a lot of people doing Twitch streaming now. You have to be so dedicated. Like my friend Juxto, she
was
is on the road.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She's on the road for partnership. She should be partnered. She does amazing. She does everything. She speaks with Razor. She got 10k following. She gets insane amount of views, donations, everything. But she just can't get that partnership tick. And without that tick, you can't really get sort of the full-time thing. So Twitch streaming for me is probably not something I'm going to go into full-time. But you've got sort of like the hosting thing that we're doing with Arena Clash, which is going to be a seasonal thing. There's other touring like LANs and gaming cons, which I'm trying to get my foot into the door with. So for me, I think in the next couple of months, at August time, I'm going to drop my sales advisor job and just like wing it. Like Chris said, just wing it, see what happens, because I don't have like anyone to look after. I don't have any kids or anything like that. So I just look after myself and just sort of like hope that I can feed myself every month, and then that's fine with me as long as I enjoy what I do.
I suppose that's the primary thing. For me, it would be ideal. I'm still not even out of school yet. I'm still in my last year of sixth form. I'm doing my A levels. I know I look like a comfy hobo who's had a marriage and like lost his alcoholism and everything. So like that's great for me. Either which way, like for me, I'm going to university next year to study journalism.
Oh, wow.
And for me, that's going to be a step in the right direction in terms, because I want to go to gaming esports with it. But having a portfolio, like doing stuff like this, doing these podcasts, doing these interviews, doing the casting and everything like that, it sets me up in good stead. Because if you think about it, how many different journalists, because they're experts on their field, go into on broadcast jobs, which is where I want to go eventually, something on broadcast. And for me, I'm comfortable. I've got my job. I live with my parents. Whatever. I just turned 18, so I've now got more responsibilities than I ever could have wanted. But I've got my job, which is a customer service advisor in some crappy call center, and I do that on the weekends and on a Monday night, and I have to juggle that with casting. And the thing about casting, especially with what me and Brody do, is that we have two days on a Saturday and Sunday where basically everything happens, because everyone's off school, everyone's off of their jobs. They've got 2 days where they can run playoff brackets and stuff. So I have to be like, right, if I can get this off work, then I'll be okay to do it. But like otherwise, I'm scuppered either which way. So for me, it's a debate of juggling that and my A levels and everything else. And with Brody at university as well, I'm sure he can elaborate on that for himself.
Yeah, university is horrible. I don't know. Like for me, being at university and doing this job is incredibly hard to balance, because obviously for us, any university students who are in casting or whatever, you're having to balance all of your work that you get, which is a lot of work, but it's incredible workload. All your lectures, which aren't that bad to be fair, because you can skip the majority of them.
Don't want to be admitted to that though.
Don't admit it, but and of course, like everything else that you get on your timetable, right? So you have to do that pretty much, otherwise you want to skip. And then of course on top of that, you have to put in a tremendous amount of work into casting. Like I don't want to, like, George probably puts more work into casting than I do, because that stat sheet is an incredible, like, I don't want to underestimate how much work George put into that stat sheet. For those of you who don't like know, like for the Easter Cup, there was a lot of work in that, right? But the work that, if I'm honest, the work that casters do at our level at least, is a lot for what we get. I don't want to say get paid, but for where we're at, right? For what we get back as casters, it's a lot, right? I'll stress to people that casting, the amount that casters get paid, and I'm not really sure whether or not it's the same at your guys' level, but at this level, at the very least, it is minimal. We're operating below minimum wage. Tiny. We are operating below minimum wage as casters, right? I'm a firm believer in casters should get paid minimum wage. It's a job at the end of the day. It's a sick job. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love my job, and I couldn't stress how grateful I am for everyone for putting me in this position, where I'm at, having casted for 1.5 years in the online leagues. But the work that casters put in the job is so much more than anybody sees, I think. And I'm sure you guys would agree with that. Is that like, for example, Chris, when you used to play, or no, used to cast COD, sorry, or you still do, but when you used to cast it for the CWL. I presume you do like analysis behind the scenes, like to make sure you knew what teams you're talking about, and that work goes unseen. It absolutely does. Players do not see that unless you're publicly tweeting it every 5 minutes and making sure people understand that you are doing it for yourself.
Is that a shot, bro?
Yeah. No, but like, unless you're doing that, people do not see what you do, and then you can get negative labels attached to yourself that you don't put the work in and stuff like that. So I just want to stress that casting is not as anywhere near as, or even presenting. To like stress that to you guys, it's not an easy job by any means, and it's not. However blessed I think we all are in our jobs, because it's a sick job to have. Like I can't stress that enough. Like, working in esports and gaming is a dream job. But like, I think the amount of work in it people don't see, and it's really, I guess it's partially frustrating to see what people don't see, and when I think that's when we do get appreciation. It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah,
people
I couldn't
don't
agree more.
Our like 20-minute warm up that we do.
Yeah,
vocal.
I was about to say as well. Like, much...
it's awful. It's awful. We're like hissing and screaming,
No. It's like all the pre-show rituals you do on theatre, isn't it? Where you're doing like,
yes.
Literally, that's what we do.
That is it. Yeah.
This is the thing.
I Snapchatted it, and it was weird.
I was going to go on to say that, like, you guys having to spend, like, what was it, 2 days down in Basingstoke doing your training and what have.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much stuff that goes into it behind the scenes. You guys, that sort of stuff it's fun, the experience, but again, it's a lot of work, a lot of time you have to take out of your lives, which you have other things to be doing. And like there's all that stuff is completely behind the scenes. Like unless you'd told us, we had no idea that would have been a thing. Like we, from our novice and naive point of view, you just hop on a stage with a microphone and just go ask some questions. It's all happy Larry, but it's obviously not that. So I do agree with Brody in the sentiment that it is a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes. For me especially, because I'm the one who runs the streams at the moment, at least for most of our casts, is that I'm having to do that at the same time. People are like criticizing me for having the graphics around the wrong way and whatever. I'm just like, I'm trying to do this from OBS Studio in my bedroom, dude. Like, there's very little I can do.
It's so hard.
People
That's incredibly hard, yeah.
People are expecting like CWR level broadcast or like ESL1 Cologne, and I'm sitting in my bedroom, mate. Honestly, I can't do that.
Yeah, I don't think people understand that when they hire a caster, you're hiring somebody to talk, but at the same point they expect you to be able to produce like a next level sort of
online
thing.
At least as well.
Yeah. You know, well, I got asked to do a cast just last week, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm down to cast this tournament. That's perfectly fine. And they're like, okay, well, we'll need you to stream to this and that. It's going to need these logos and this location and doing this and that. I went, you asked for a caster, not a producer. Like,
right, yeah, exactly.
If you want me to do both, you're going to have to double my wage, like, because that's not going to be doable. Like, that's outrageous. You can't be expected to do both, because when you're focusing on the producing, then your casting takes a hit. And then if you focus on your casting, then producing takes a hit, and there'll be something wrong on stream, and then people will kick up a fuss and chat, and it'll look bad for sponsors and everything. So I think that's one of the things that people need to get out of the hand of. Well, is if you're hiring a caster, you're hiring someone to talk. If you're hiring a producer, then they're hired to do all the stream stuff. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that people need to get out of the hand of, is that when you're hiring a caster, you're literally hiring somebody to just talk, not produce as well.
There's a thing that I had a couple of weeks ago. I got asked to cast like a few minor tournaments, whatever, just some things that are just coming up. People just wanted someone to talk over it for them. Like in my Twitter bio, I just talk over video games with people, right? That's all I do. But they were like, oh, we haven't got one of those things that you put over the codcaster at the top. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just crack open Photoshop and make one of those for myself, will I? Because I'm not going to sit there and like stand for it looking messy as hell. The broadcast is reflective of me as a caster at this level as well, so I've got to make sure it looks all right.
Especially for the one streaming it as well. It's awful. I've been doing it like before George came along, and when I've moved myself now to a place where the internet isn't as good as it was, so I can't stream it to the higher quality level that I used to be able to do so. You know, you'd be expected to have that kind of stream out like all the time. Having done it for a year and being the one streaming it, you make one mistake, you're like
crucified.
Someone will say it. You'll be crucified in chat, and it's incredible. It doesn't really happen as much anymore, I don't think, but it's still
got more accepting.
It's still people have been more accepting of it, but I think like the stuff, like I think Chris hit the nail on the head perfectly there, was just like when you hire someone, you are hiring them as a caster. And I think a lot of people don't see it that way. Like ultimately we have jobs, but like they're still jobs. You're hiring someone when you're paying them to do something, and that's as much as you love that job and as much as you put extra effort in, like George and I do, and I'm sure you guys do as well, because you love the job and you love the scene that you're in. That ultimately is still a job, and you're getting paid for it. And I think a lot of people don't really respect that.
Absolutely. I think the one thing as well is that a lot of streamers, not streamers, like casters, also don't get paid.
Yes.
And now that's the one thing that really drives me nuts is if you're good at something, never do it for free.
This is a problem, I think, as well. If it messes up like people who want to get paid as well, and this is something that George and I have been speaking about recently, or at least I think I've been quite vocal about it, is that I 100% believe that there should be, even if it's not minimum wage, but a wage like that everyone should get.
You know?
Yeah, a flat rate that everyone should agree to. And if anybody undercuts that, it causes a problem for the casters who are charging more. So if you're charging less than a caster, you are not helping. You're not just helping yourself. You're not bettering yourself. You're making someone else worse off, and that is a big problem for me, at least. I think personally, you need to, because if everyone's charging the same amount, then an organisation is not going to turn around and say,
they can just pick on preference, then, can't they? They don't have to be based on like affordability.
You're not going to turn around and say, oh, I can't pay you guys that anymore, because you're not going to get anyone else unless they're casting free. And I think that's really annoying as well. When someone casts for free, unless it's their first time and they just want experience or whatever. Like
I did.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's your first time, I think that's fair enough. But I think if you've been doing it and you know it's your job, casting for free is not just, I think it's beneficial for yourself. Fair enough, you're going to get jobs. But I think people need to start seeing that actually it's a problem for other casters. You're actually hurting other people in their jobs rather than just yourself, and that's not helpful for us as well. Like George, you're going to university, so you're going to understand that as a university student, it's incredibly hard to get a job and balance it. Yeah, exactly. You're going to be broke. Like at the moment, financially, being at university is incredibly. It's just a really hard thing to do. Like you need a job, and for me, esports is my job here, right? It's my part-time job. I rely on the pay I get for casting, and if other people are going to undercut me in that pay, then it makes what I do much harder, because then I have to balance it out with other stuff, and I'm putting less time into the work I'm doing here for casting. So I think people, again, it's just one of those things where people don't see it, and it's one of those things that people just do not think about. I think of serious, and I don't think they should, but I think it's just one of those things that again, you don't really think about it. It doesn't really. You just sort of gloss over it and think, oh, it doesn't matter that much.
And I think from a streamer's point of view, we can bring Jess back in on this one now, because we've just been kind of having a bit of a tangent. I love this. I'm a bit self-absorbed there, but like from Jess's point of view as well as a streamer, like you're not employed. As what the sense is that me and Brody and Chris, when we're doing casting, we're working for an employer. So they're paying us, right? For you, you're self-employed. You're having to put more effort into your own stream to attract more people in order to get more money, right? Because eventually, like as much as we hate to say it, it's not love that makes the world go round. It is fundamentally money, and like from that point of view, again, the amount of work that you could be putting in behind the scenes, like improving your setup, improving your audio quality, your video quality, anything like that, anything that you have to put in that you can sacrifice time or hours or different like things that you might have to do in your life. It's in the end, it's all like, oh, just so I can end up getting more. It's just so I can end up making myself more advertisable or something like that, you know? Because that's the same what it is for us. Is we're having to compete with other people for everyone else's viewership or everyone else's preference of employment. So I just wanted to throw that in for you.
People don't really realize, like so the stuff I do, the list is endless. If I've done one thing, there's always something else. Like currently, I need to update my stream panels and get my overlay sorted. I've got merchandise on the way, and I'm talking to a couple of companies about getting affiliation. And affiliations aren't sponsorships where it will pay me like employment. It's just literally, you all know affiliation, it's just a link that you get when people purchase stuff and you get a certain amount. But it's your stream and your channel is your brand. Like you always have to try and keep on top of the current stuff. Like I did something for this ARC stuff I've just started. Basically, if you donate a certain amount and if you're like the top donator by the end of the stream, you get to name my dinosaur. And the overlays, it's pretty silly, but the overlays... It took me a while to do, but like you don't realize it. Like when it's actually on stream, you don't. It's you look at there for a few seconds. It's like okay, and that's it. But that took me about an hour. So
I've got a friend called Claudia who does Twitch streaming, and she does drawing streams where she does draw stuff. She's very very good, and she uses she has like a tablet, you know, one of those ones that you I'm sure you got one if you draw and stuff. But she does all that, and she's massively into like Japanese cartoons and anime and that kind of stuff. And she does all these sort of different artworks, and she's pulling in viewers and stuff. And it's always for her, like she's not looking to make money out of that. She's looking to do that as a hobby. But I said to her the other day when I was watching one of her streams, I said, you could so do something out of this. You've got 30, 40 viewers all sitting in your stream, like asking what you're drawing or like how your day is going, whatever, and like all that sort of stuff. They're engaged with you. Like you're not the most extroverted person, but they're still engaged with your drawing because it's sick, and like they're still engaged with all parts of your streams as well. And she just spent like a load of money on getting a new PC and everything, so she could continue with that and try and make it into a career as a result. So like there's so many things that you have to sacrifice and like spend money to make more or whatever. Like, there's so many different things like that. So I think that's like,
I don't think it's even down to sacrificing on the money variety. It's down to sacrificing your own free time. So a lot of my time is spent in front of my computer casting or presenting, and in all fairness, my girlfriend's in the living room right now, and she's waiting for me to finish this so she can actually eat dinner. So, so it's sacrificing.
Situation right now.
It's like sacrificing time with your loved ones and your friends and your family. So I don't think people understand that as well. It's like I work a full-time job. I work from 9 till 5:30 on a daily basis. I come home and I get straight onto my PC to cast or present to you guys, and it's a lot of time and effort on that behalf that is exhausting, a long day. But at the same point, I'm taken time away from the woman I love in the other
Yeah,
room
exactly.
to talk to you guys about a video game at the end of the day.
It's mad, isn't it? I think that's a good place to actually come to a nice, comfortable conclusion now as well, because we've been going for about, well, the stream's been live for an hour and 10, which means we've been probably talking for about 40 to 45 minutes. So I think that's a good place to end it. We don't want to keep dragging it out too long. Obviously, Brody's got his girlfriend in his bed behind him. She can give us a wave if she's there.
Well, hey.
But hey.
Hey.
I'm not saying anything.
She's watching The Goblet of Fire for the 3rd day in a row. Chris has obviously got his loved ones to go after, and I'm sure Jess has got to go talk to her mum or something.
Oh no, I am lonely right now.
No one. Oh, I've got to go.
No,
eat dinner.
I'm going to throw a pizza in the oven and carry on streaming some Ark and catch some dinos. So I'm
The one.
yeah.
That's the one. Ark is such a good game as well. I started playing it the other day.
Loving it. I've got 2 hours and I'm loving it already.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to get too obsessed with it because Counter-Strike always takes preference in my life at the moment, but either which way. Thank you guys for tuning in today. This has been a cracking stream and it's been very insightful. We managed to peak at around 30-40 viewers, which is good for most of these streams anyway. It's pretty good. We're actually in the right category today as well. We're in gaming talk shows.
Yeah,
so we've
we're in
managed to get
good
that one
talk
up.
shows. We've moved on.
We've moved on from Call of Duty and Fortnite, so there we go. We're looking good. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. We've got the Easter Cup playoffs coming up for the Esports Universe tomorrow and Friday. Sadly, Brody won't be joining me because he's a little bitch and he's off to America.
I'm going to America for me. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so he's got his other
Fine, we'll be back
priorities.
soon.
So thank you again to Jess and Chris. They've been both fantastic guests and they've been giving us great insight. Make sure to go follow those guys. Their ats are on screen as always on the overlay. I had to do that one like 2 minutes before the stream started, so more love. So thank you guys as always for watching. It's